Greetings. This is my story, and I want to share it with the world because I think it's important to share. So, I used to be a part of. I used to be a Christian, and one of the last churches that I was in was a Seventh Day Adventist church, and they had taught us about. They had a message, a health message from a woman called Ellen G. White. At the time, I was married, so we both started. We changed our diet and started eating like vegetarian. We were mostly like pescatarian because we still ate fish or whatever, but not that often. One day I worked really hard. My job at the time was like physically demanding. I came home, took a shower, and fell asleep on my back. And I never sleep on my back. I always sleep on my side, and I didn't sleep with a pillow, so I just was laid flat out. I woke up in the middle of the night and I had sleep paralysis. I didn't know what sleep paralysis was at the time. I just was very terrified because it felt like my body was just numb. It didn't move. I was panicking because I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't do anything. And then I heard some things say, just calm down. Well, I calmed down. I said, let me try to sit up. So I tried to sit up and I sat up at the edge of the bed, and I could see my body still laying down, which was crazy to me. But that wasn't the only part. There were two entities or two beings in front of me, and they were like really tall. They were really tall, and their arms were like elongated, and their fingers were long. They were skinny. They looked terrifying, but they weren't. I wasn't afraid of them for some reason. And one of them placed their hand on my chest and kind of like sat me back down or laid me back down in my body. And the most terrifying part of that experience was actually just being in my body, because my body felt like a tomb. It just felt numb. It just felt like dead, like not dead, but like it wasn't move. I wasn't moving, and I panicked, but I calmed down again, and I was able to like cry out and gain control. Years later, my wife at the time was going through like hives, where she would get hives like 3 months. It was very painful and uncomfortable. So I started doing research on diet and health and all this other stuff, and I came across like a 90-day detox from a gentleman named Tahuti Ma'at Ra, and his stuff. And we ordered the 90-day detox. We started it. We changed our diet. We just ate vegan. Um, and I was sun gazing. I started learning about sun gazing and meditating. Like I would meditate very consistently. I was doing it every day, 2 to 3 times a day. Once in the sun, once in a very dark room. And then I started doing it like with crystals every time I felt the urge. So at the minimum, every day I was doing it like twice a day. And one night, my ex-wife and I had a disagreement, and it was about the bed sheets, but it was deeper than that. And during that disagreement, I had a thought that was very negative towards her. Come like it it was different because I I was aware that something was whispering or suggesting this, and it wasn't coming from me, and it was disturbing. But at that very moment, she gets up without saying anything and goes into our daughter's room, and I felt bad about the thought, so I texted her to come back. She came back, and we started talking. And in the midst of us talking, she starts to cry, bawling. She doesn't really cry like that hard, but she's like bawling, like ah. And at that moment, our bed is facing the entrance to the room, and the entrance is around the corner. And I saw a thing peering around the corner with a fedora hat and like a popped up collar, and it was black. It was blacker than my shirt. It was like deepest, darkest black. I couldn't even make out the face. So much so that I rubbed my eyes, and I was terrified because this thing was like this entity or person or whatever was tall. It was like 7 feet. You know what I'm saying? And um there, I looked to my left and our closet was there, and there was also an entity standing in the darkness there, and I was legit terrified. I was like, yo. So I'm like nudging my ex-wife, and I'm like, yo, it's deeper than that. Like, she's like, and she immediately stops crying. I don't tell her what I see or what's going on, but she stops crying immediately, and she says, there's one by the door and one in the closet. That scared me even more because I was like, yo, I am not seeing things, and someone else has verified what I am seeing. So we weren't in the church anymore, and we basically, so I was legit about to pray to Jesus, but I was like, so we said some affirmations and like imagined like a bubble around us. That's the best thing. It's like a white light, and I would say like, you can't harm us, you can't do anything. You know what I'm saying? We're protected and stuff like that. And they went away. The thing just disappeared, and I wasn't. I was living I'm clean life, like nothing. Like, I'm not under the influence of anything. And the fact that someone else saw what I saw and verified that, I will forever tell this story, and it changed my life. So, but as she was crying, I saw this thing before she said anything. A knowing came over me, and I knew and understood that these things were like they were excited that she was in a state of like despair or like sadness, and they were literally like feeding off of it. um and it changed my life. Like, later on, after that moment, I did some research on like describing this entity that I saw, the first one. And I was like a shadow being with a hat, and I came across videos and uh, you know web postings of someone called the Hat Man, and other people have seen this same entity, and I was like, you're blown away. I was like, yo, people have actually seen the same thing I saw. And from that moment, I understood that there was um, entities that infiltrate our mind under our detection, under our conscious awareness. And because we most people don't exercise their consciousness. And I went on this campaign trying to tell everybody about these beings, and a lot of people were like, whatever. But I understood that they can influence all of us against each other, and against our own selves, by suggestions like pictures and thoughts that we think that are coming from ourselves, but are coming from these entities. And I likened it to the Matrix, like, how Agent Smith or anyone in the Matrix could become like an Agent Smith, and it's the case. So um after that, I was like angry. I was very angry because I realized that humanity was being like controlled or influenced in a malicious way and used. And I started telling everybody about it, and I started meditating even more, and I would like go into like a dark place and like meditate to try to like see these things, you know what I'm saying? Like, black out the room. At the time, I had a job that right after that moment, they sent me on the road, and I was working on the road. And I remember um, just trying to combat these things because I was like so angry at them. And I was like, I saw them another time in a hotel. Like, I blacked out the whole room, made sure all the curtains, everything was like little to no light. And I started meditating. And at that time, my body would kind of do this. It started to vibrate, and I knew if I held it, that was kind of scary too. Like, I just didn't know I was experiencing all these things, and they would come into my consciousness, and I would remember all my dreams. And this was like at the height of me consistently meditating, sun gazing, and things like that. But um, I experienced like adversity after that. Like, there were some difficult challenges that entered my life. Like, I was put on an assignment where I worked overnight, and the assignment would every almost every assignment would something would go wrong and force me to stay until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had another assignment, so I barely got sleep, and that really affected, like, I had something going on with my skin where it was like dry and like cracking on my forehead, on all the way to the side of my face. I couldn't understand why, and it was just very discouraging. So then I, like, after like 2 months, I was like, yo, I gave in and started eating meat again, and I was like, um, and I stopped meditating like that, and I, like, just was distracted, and I think I was trying to take on these entities by myself, and that's very difficult. So I want to say that now I understand the importance of exercising your consciousness, and exercising your awareness, not and most importantly of yourself. And this is what I want to impart to people, that there are things that you feel, that negative thoughts that are not necessarily from you. And even if you take like drugs or alcohol and you say, oh, it's like releasing your inhibitions, like these are things that you always wanted to do, it's not true. It's like a gateway for them to be like, your level of awareness has dropped, and they just come in through the back door. I say, like, they just come in and just, you know so I want to encourage people to meditate, 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 fight through it, meditate together, um, find a team, you know what I'm saying, and be aware of this stuff, because it's real. Like, it's real. Like, another thing that I've done now, we have a group called the High Grade Center of Consciousness, and it's all, you can find us on Facebook, and we're about awareness, self awareness mostly, and awareness of your environment, but like exercising that, really dealing with yourself, and having a group is like always better than just trying to fight this by yourself or overcome these things by yourself. And I just want to encourage people, like, yo, check us out, or just, yo, eat better and exercise and meditate, and get some sun, get some sunlight. Um, what I've been practicing is also semen retention. I think the lack of sex is like better for you spiritually. I never really like I had my ups and downs about that as a Christian. It's like, oh, you're attracted to women, but they're telling you not to lust. But that was, if you weren't single, it was, if you were married and it was like, you shouldn't do that. But if you're single, yes, naturally you're going to be attracted to the opposite sex, or whatever, you know what I'm saying. But there's some power. This is just my personal experience. I'm not telling you this. There's power in, like, retaining your, especially for men, retaining your semen, like not ejaculating. Like, it makes you clear. Like, I don't know if like, you climb the ladder. I don't know about the esoteric stuff. I'm just telling you, this is what my experience is, and like, it's tried and true. Like, you know what I'm saying. So, um, that's all I want to say, is that, yo, there's like, guard your heart and guard your mind. You know what I'm saying? Put on a helmet, guard your heart, put on a breastplate of righteousness and all that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not subscribing to any religion, but yo, there's truth. That's truth. Like, you gotta guard your heart. You gotta be aware, like, You know what I'm saying? So peace and love. I hope this helps somebody. I hope you like yo realize that you're not alone and you're not a terrible person. You're not, there are like, we used to see the angels and demons on your shoulder and stuff. Like, yo, there's truth to that. Like legit. Like I saw these things and yo, they're in the shadows. They're the shadows for real. And you're powerful though because they need your consent. And that's where I'm at now in my life. I'm like, yo, not to fear that they need your consent. If you're unaware though, you're gonna acquiesce to these things and not, but they need your consent. So peace, love, and a good journey.